Hello out there in our land. We resume our course on Menschlichkeit. Today's course, as always, the class is Lil Nishas Rachalei Bas Chaim Tzvi. After already delivering 7 classes, I think it's time to repeat our caveat that far be it from me to give a course on midos, on how we should conduct ourselves. However, it's my great hope that this class will be a source of discussion, be it in the car, in the kitchen, over Shabbos table. If this can generate discussion and internalization, that will be my reward for the effort of trying to become a better person, and more than anyone else, I need this very much. We left off last time talking about how important it is not to be an ingrate, and how being a happy person means you're going to be being a grateful person means you're going to be a happy person. We continue now. The Gemara asks the following question: how do you find a good guest? How do you find a bad guest? Says Rav Zoma, a good guest is one who says, how much trouble has my host gone to for me? They put out meat for me, they put out cakes for me, so much trouble they did, all for my sake. And the ungrateful guest looks at the situation very differently. Says the ungrateful guest, nah, they didn't do this for me. I only ate a little bit. I only had a little bit to drink, a little bit to eat. And whatever they did for themselves, for their own children, and I was hardly a beneficiary. That is the perspective of the bad guest. Now, as always, we have to try and take a Gemara out of its simple example and then apply it and conceptualize how it applies to other parts of life. And many of us go through life as bad guests. We belittle what some people do for ourselves, and we say they're not doing it for us, they're doing it because their own interests are involved. Someone does us a favor, we have to focus on the good that's been done. We have to show that we are grateful. There is a negative commandment in the Torah, I confess, not one of the most famous ones. Lo teta'ed mitri keger hayita ba'artzo. You may not despise an Egyptian because you were once strangers in their land. Now, the fact of the matter is that we were desperate, and the Egyptians provided a roof over our heads, but it took tremendous advantage of us. Nonetheless, the fact of the matter is, since they did us a favor, we must be grateful. That's not people's normal perspective. Now, the fact of the matter is, do we have a mitzvah to commemorate how they afflicted us every day? Of course. And is there a yearly mitzvah to retell the story of how they afflicted and tortured and persecuted us? Yes, there is. And yet we may not despise them, because when we were desperate, they provided us with a service. Now here's a real simple kal v'chomer to make, a real simple deduction. Even if you never learned in yeshiva, and even if you don't have a big finger, simple conclusion. If an Egyptian who afflicted, tortured, and persecuted, we have to be grateful to, how much more so, ben benoshel kal v'chomer, must we be grateful and appreciative to our neighbor and our friend who does us a favor. And what is human nature? I hope it's not just my nature, but I think this is human nature across the board. That if someone does us a favor, and one day curtails the favor, then we think, what a creep. And we forget all the good that's been done. We just swallow up all the good and only focus on that bad. I once heard an example, I think this may come even from Rebbe and Salmon, that let's say every Tuesday night you go to aerobics. And now it's a 3-day yontif and you've eaten so much you have to ride inside Goodyear and like a blimp. And your only excuse, your only rationalization is that on Tuesday night is aerobics, you're going to burn off all the fat. Now, every single Tuesday night at 7:45, your friend Chani picks you up, and now it's 16 to 8, and you're looking forward to this aerobics, you're already at the door, when you get a phone call, ding-a-ling, it's Chani, I just met my friend, I'm taking her to aerobics, I can't take you tonight. What a creep. However, the good guest thinks, 1 second here, for a year and a half, she did me a favor, she doesn't owe me anything, and I really work on myself in this regard. If someone doesn't do me a favor, you have to realize they don't owe you. And even though it's human nature to think, well, listen, if they would have asked me, I surely would have done it. One never knows. How come when we deny doing someone else a favor, we said this before, we judge other people by their actions, and we judge ourselves by our intentions. For whatever reason it is, and even if it was abrupt, they didn't do a favor, focus not on the bad, but let's try and remember all the good they've done. If you can't hate an Egyptian, how much more so can you remember the good done to us by a fellow person? Now, another way, this is pointed out again in that fabulous book by Rabbi Joseph Telushkin about an ethical masterwork. He describes there's other ways that a person can be a bad guest. For example, let's say you go to an affair at someone's house. a bita simcha, a sheva brachos, whatever it's simcha you go for, or some affair they have in the house, and you're driving home, very often people, husband and wife, conduct a post-mortem. And they say, the children, their behavior of the children was abominable. And the soup was really burnt. And the salad was so untasty. That is a bad guest. You don't know. Maybe they spent days, hours preparing themselves. They moved the couch out of the living room. They made room for it. And they did all kinds of efforts to make you have a good time. And you're being a bad guest by saying, look, the kids were misbehaved. And the salad wasn't tasty. Just think about the good. And if you can't, bring yourself to say, I really did good things. At least be quiet for at least 24 hours. Then and then, at least the feelings will diminish and you may feel a little bit inhibited.